Alright, we're doing this because it turns out that it's not as easy to find a copy of Diasporantics online as it used to be, so we are going to do a quick read-in through a couple of these and see how long it takes us to get through it, or maybe not. Yeah, but Diasporantics, 45 pages. I don't remember it being that many. Well, let's try. Ironies. After 30 years of poetry, I learned at least 100 words in no less than 2 tongues, unique to our journey as refugees to fill vacuums and bloody gaps of our disrupted histories. Recovering families, dismantling enemies, identifying the official tools of allies bombing us for our own good, their policies of destruction and resettlement, how to win hearts and minds in diaspora, from D.C. to Modesto, Anchorage to the Twin Cities, walking into 1,000 classrooms, strangers to the beauty of Vientiane, Savannah-Ket, a heartfelt sub-ID, gathering in storm clouds to change worlds. One poem still can't tell my whole story. Tunes. Sing as you will your 12 songs of Laos then, all the way through, whatever it is, or one for your beloved, or one for your city, or one for the beauty you swore never to forget. Sing the one for your soldiers and the one for teachers, whatever one for the Dok Champa that's not really about the Dok Champa. Share your anthem for a broken heart or for one about your forbidden dream. What are your words to welcome your new year? The tunes in your kitchen you try to teach a child. Answer me, how does it go? This song of who you are, whether you laugh in rusty Lao or weep. Missing the beauty. A certain Sao Lao Namlai I knew on Broadway Avenue would win up her close calls with the B-52s, secretly coating her home in cluster bombs during our war. She often mentioned her niece who went back to Laos, a tourist, going from Savannah-Ket to Luang Prabang, loving it all except for the endless jungle, too many temples, and long-lost relatives everywhere. I haven't heard from her in heaven knows how long. Heart an unfinished book, the soul a riddle of questionable destinies more than dreaming histories, nocturnal and relentless, a papaya, a covert French kiss onto non van noom. Anchan, I know. My young brother worries one day after all it took to live here. His little nieces, who haven't even been born yet, won't understand a word of his poetry, or how to dance with an elephant, let alone a Knelly or a New York Apsala. Putting Huasai on the literary map after centuries is a precedent, but is it poetry? To tell tomorrow, Sabadi, how are you, from someone who cared enough to leave notes? Is that all a Lao poem can be in the shadow of Camp Pendleton? I show him a copy of CIA Dope Calypso. Why should a white howl be the very last word? I smile as he demonstrates all he can change with his pen. Just so you know, my love tells me I'm not allowed to curse the teachers who taught my young readers they would not be able to find stories of who they are in poetry. That wouldn't be very Lao, you know. This moment disappeared like a bowl of hot fur beneath a full moon in mid-April. A good poem takes you swimming in an ocean dark as ink, among secret gods and dreams of whom you had no words nor prayers, remembering a lover you forgot to wish for until now. Turn the moon-white page. Watch Sub-ID take its place next to serenade like a kiss your grandchildren turn into legends. Nam. Beneath this life, about this life, the fierce sun tucks himself away like a snaggle-toothed knack after a long day's standing over lush plains of green and stone, valleys and smoking mountains thick with the scent of hot rice. Our alluring cities filled with humble jewels, the hue of families in love, and guests being welcomed by a gentle knock. Anticipating visitations. John Bunmont tells me Manu Tun Dao will likely never be the common word for alien, despite any protests about extraterrestrials, xenomorphs, and other obscure terms we apply for these visitors from afar. We debate the monastic options open to such entities, whether they could board or be taken seriously, let alone trusted not to eat novices when our backs were turned. We'd come so far already, but could they take vows in our distant land to escape cycles of samsara, a perpetual return? I'm informed bluntly in the Theravada tradition we've little use for koans, for odd questions of mu, and whether tiny dogs could become Buddhas if they bark in the walls of a vat they'd once swept their way. We looked together through an odd telescope that night, quietly appreciating our shared stars before the next prayers. Avec tout mon amour. Here's to a nameless beauty I once chased relentlessly, I would not chase today. Not so much a lovely bullet dodged, a splendid fortune revealed, some grand lesson learned from misses. Our April snow melts and nourishes gardens yet to bloom, who shall never know your shadow, happily. And I have memories of New Year's I may never regret, in a world full of wisdom we can barely begin to understand, true as we are to ourselves this morning. Discussing dystopias. The young Lao boy in Prescott sneered dismissively, "No one is ever going to care about Rapi and Kennelly or the forbidden history of Knox cities." He went back to his computer to slay a Gorgon's legion of space orcs with his high elves and wyverns, defending his digital lanes against trolls, howling banshees, Nazi zombies, and at least one ornery basilisk for the rest of the weekend. It was just as well. Another secret war in America. Deja vu. Ken Burns is winning of the Vietnam War. It's a documentary with a soundtrack to die for. 9 Inch Nails and Yo-Yo Ma, Ray Charles and CCR. 18 hours to cover a war of 20 years and 180 days, or 19 years, depending on who you ask, picking up shortly after the end of the French and Dien Bien Phu. For the occasion, I filmed a poem of mine this summer that someone found again, one I wrote in 2002 as a remembrance of a visit in November 1997 in Missoula among Hmong veterans while searching for my family. It's a long story. A poem doesn't give you much time to talk about secret wars or Valkyries, specters, or the secret stories behind the code names of company men like Hog and Kayak, Black Lion, or Mr. Clean. I hold old photographs in my hand. I click through digital faces salvaged from old Legionnaire estate sales, dying photographers who thought I might like to know what they saw in my lost jungles for a price. It's the closest I get to a time machine with no way to change the present, but possibly the future. Still, I've said this to you before. In writing this, time stops being a one-way river, less a bamboo sticks. 1,080 minutes is all the time they think we can spare 40 years later on a war that never ended for many of us. Our voices, fleeting smoke they try to box into a neat package, believed a bygone era will never relive again, Buddhist ideas aside. Riding the tiger. Bury in my wars these memories of you don't mean nothing, wondering who will stop the rain, and who knows the way back to San Jose, 10,000 places you left your hearts. What a song for all these waters and slaughters. It seems almost unthinkable, but I'll ask anyway. In the shadows of Saigon in your olive and pomp, did you really see yourselves in your rumbling array, as some smiling lady rider from Niger, or believes you were merely the tiger? All this napalm, the burning bright, our fearful symmetries, these roaring hogs, hurling yourselves at the moon and stars, striped liberty gorging with impunity, weapons free. You came a long way, baby, for your hearts and minds, lighting huts like there's a snazzy meadow down the avenue. You never paused to think what it really means to come back, deep down inside, from this land of cycles and samsara, snickering at were-tiger rumors, shining bullets for a voracious phoenix. Viewpoints. Turning your eyes to distant stars, you witness infinity spinning as it has been, eons upon eons before we were born, orbits and memories, oceans and dust. Wherever you are but a speck, an ambulatory grain, sparkling, alive, epitome of a momentary, whether a witness on a Vientiane roof, an ancient observatory in Beijing, or some sandy steppe in Samarkand. Your true tale, one amid seemingly endless stories, no less, no more than any other. Dare you speak of identity and legacies, may as well debate the dreams of spinosaurs, and yet we sing, defying our future silence, for vast eternities pending, knowing our yawning cosmos has been changed by far less long before, and perhaps once again, with the same ease as a Sunday sabbath. True. Here my mouth is an ink waterfall by the shore of your beautiful body of legends. One day a hero like Siton, Sinsai, or wandering wit like Shenmian might come upon my modest verses and fondly remember bustling Market Street with the same delight as storied to Non Fan Num, even if my own momentary name is forgotten, like the architect of your first Vat or the last cook for the Buddha. Gel. Goes in hot, comes out hot. But this may be more than the casual student will want to know. Mom's grinding chilies for me in Modesto. Red, green, a dash of fresh cilantro, fermented shrimp sauce and a pinch of salt between her mortar and pestle. Dabbing a sticky ball of carnel into a tiny ceramic saucer, I know. She's a sorceress in her kitchen, trying to find a way to say, she loves me, hoping my prodigal tongue is still loud enough to understand what her broken English cannot convey. My eyes are cisterns of tears after 30 years. I should say Macbeth and grab some cold milk, but with a smile through the pain I stammer, Sep lai me, delicious ma. Sep lai, hak me, la lai. Don't talk, just eat, she says between her tears. Present. Here and now, I'll show you, in America, the present is a gift. Not everyone makes it. Some of us don't get one. You don't really understand why Meh weeps or who she was. Muvani, now and forever, like an aloha. Everything comes around again, even a sub-ID in diaspora, or returns you cannot explain. Unwrapped, a moment, 1,000 unfinished questions. A little bat flutters by on the beach at noon, a tiny klutz clutching frantically at the wind. She doesn't know if she is a bird or a mouse. In antique Indochine, she was mocked by hoary men for her indecision, and today even her loving brothers and sisters think she's gone mad as a loon, uncertain if she is coming home or leaving for an illicit rendezvous with a sleeping moon beneath winking canopies of green no man has ever seen. Footnotes, Part 1. John Sumnook had a recollection one afternoon at the gleaming lot off Market Street. In my first month attending college in Ohio, for hours between classes, I wandered among the stacks of a courtyard library across from my door. I came upon the Lemur's Legacy, the evolution of power, sex, and love, detailing the intimate truths about tiny primates. Wily males outnumber females in their jungles. To improve the odds, snakes don't overeat mothers. Oops. Fathers are pretty interchangeable, expendable, one pretty much like the other in the sack. They can eat 3 times their body weight in nuts and berries. Pity the unlucky scholar required to weigh the consequences of this figure. I wonder what good they would have been against trusty Nak and Lanka, indifferent to blood and screams, their little deaths. You might say it's a strange thing to remember 30 years later after my full road of art and vows, but in those days it was easier to discover a book about sex and the single lemur than a recent war for our beautiful home we're born to be strangers to. Who could forget that? Phnom Penh in January. In the old country, my friend is amazed at the tiny silver boxes arrayed in the market square, ornate rows, tight-lipped and cryptic. They look like coffins for inchworms, she jests. I tell her they're for beetle nuts, great for intestinal worms, or so the spitting elders tell us, patting their bellies of hollow. We want to grab some vermicelli, passing what looked like a freshly quartered manta in a bamboo basket on the way, his pale lips muffing dark pronouncements on us all, his tail flicking on a squalor table, waving goodbye at the many tourists in these markets of carcass. Every bite becomes a postcard, colorful as saffron monks working in the street. The hermit crab, copacetic. When I am in love, I distrust myself, for convenience. In my mirror, a muscle, a surge of electricity, changing shells, occasionally coming back to an old one, if I haven't outgrown it, as I've thought. This drives my friends crazy, as if they have a right to know who I am before I do. Blind spots. Julie asks about Buddhist cosmology, amid all the creatures frolicking at the base of Mount Meru and the seas, or the mystic forest of Remapping. Did centaurs abound? In an old charmed text, Muslim scholars depicted mythic, half-equine, mysteriously, casually, absent further helpful remark. Among mule upon mules, text upon text, we otherwise have deer people, bird people, fruit women, mermaids, snake people, flying horses and elephants, monster fish, snake monkeys, and ravenous monkey snakes, killing variants, tragic ghost heads, and the like, but not a single centaur in so many centuries. In our diaspora, 1,000 mysteries. Some get a poem, some none. Some have no idea in the slightest how a child of Chiron could possibly have wandered so far. Leaving candles. Writing a poem about a young poet from the wildest age of Ethno, did I teach her enough to recognize herself in ink indelible as an April Sahtu? A wicked riddle? Possibly. But it could change the world in a page before you know it, if I wrote this correctly for a victorious Central Valley, a volume of infinite surprises, igniting untold imaginations. Lunivorous. It was disappointing to learn in the West fighting titanic Lunivorous salvating for the moon wasn't a thing. Not a bell raised an alarm, nary a shot in warning, let alone a rocket, a single peep. A slight sense of dread maybe, but nothing on par as our urgent clamor to save our shared cosmos. Out of courtesy, we don't remark on the weight you pull, hurling yourselves into high orbit from Houston. Everyone finds their place in the cosmos, from hungry frogs to toothy wahoo, slithering bakunawa and young space krakens, or the lovely whales in diaspora so fond of petunias. But you're missing out, as crazy as it all sounds. Minotaur. There's nothing behind the red silk cape of a matador. If you're looking for a man, look to the side. Charging furious, a raging coal, caught in the moment, the Spanish swordsman wrapped up in an inevitable scene. Switching places with his killer, something dies within him, not knowing why. Oriental rat flea. You've known pyramids and paupers, vermin and saints, filling graveyards between your leaps with your mouth of plagues for every age and eon. Who brought you so far to Olympus, Xenosilent Chaopus, now made immortal in your impossible, improbable diaspora, but still a mote in our boundless cosmos? Among these mighty pens and laurels, these songs of fading gods and apocalypse, what do you know of Incheon or Versailles, Vincent Ching, Mekong deltas, or fabled Delphi? Yet a single bite can rouse legendary lines whose roars might move 1,000 stars, the way mere butterflies level vast empires. For all this, I gaze with you at the distant peaks of Mount Meru, a cosmic ocean, a lifetime away, scratching with a sigh and an unspeakable memory. Origins and tomorrows. If a mere world makes you tremble, to write a single poem about your family, How could you possibly hope to reach for stars? Ajahn Jao looks at the chart with me, imagines in this temple library the Lao for known constellations. Some were simpler than others, Draco to Payanak, Pegasus to Manakab, Canis Minor to Manoi, Orion, Frabun, etc., etc., etc. Cancer confuses him. Maleng, not Kapu. Pisces should be a Titanic Babuk, he says, smoking, his thoughts drifting to his distant village a lifetime ago. Beneath our 10,000 stars, still learning then to be constant, waiting for us to arrive, brimming with all of our tiny names. New Minneapolis, the deck capital of the world. How many decades it took for them to earn this fragrant acclaim amid Great Lakes, lutefisk, and hakao, American haggis, and Midland milbenkase, a legacy admired olfactory. In the beginning, success was no guarantee. Tamakon Haunted Stick wasn't an immediate hit, but young Lao entrepreneurs at the fair would still persist in a world could try kimchi, green eggs and ham, or turkey spam. We declined automation for this guided recipe, brought forth from the best beneath grandma's sinks, convincing the city it took longer than one might think. Blending rice bran and fish flesh with spice and salt took time, and sometimes something more than just algorithms plugged indifferently into some rust bucket AI with a box of mason jars, a year and a thermostat, deaf to the cries of what stinks. Between it all, there were wars and there was peace. We reached strange stars and mysterious deeps. Beer Lao poured from every tap between LA to Chicago. Beauty sang with Laotown pride from Lindale to University, and the Minnesota Guitar League had its first world victory. Alas, for Kentucky Balut Company was nowhere near as lucky. We'll call that a stop for now.